Hello, it's Philip Carr-Gomm here. Welcome to Tea with the Druid 69. Do say if you're here. Type in where you're from. It'd be lovely to see you, because there's Richard. Looking forward to tea with the grumpy druid. And Ellie's joined as well. Great, lovely to see you. So do say where you're from, because it gives a lovely feeling of connection as everybody comes together. And funny Scotland and North California and Allenville, New York, and Anzio, wherever that is. That's Italy, I think. Who is that in Anzio? From Slovakia and Celia. Lovely. Okay, great to see you. Now, I announced this by saying I was grumpy, and don't come and sit with a grumpy old bloke like me for 20 minutes. And then I went downstairs and I turned on the television and I saw this very sad news about Notre Dame burning furiously. It's very, very sad. There's been a huge fire there just in the last hour or so, and it's done tremendous damage. And there's nothing like watching other people's sadnesses to make yours disappear, or it gets into perspective. So that's a very sad piece of news, and what it brings up for me is this question of the kind of discipline that doing something regularly, anything in the public domain, like if you're doing television or films or kind of stuff that I do and lots of other people do too, is where you have to go on even though you're feeling unwell. I've got some kind of bug at the moment. I'm feeling slightly unwell. If you're feeling grumpy, if you're feeling sad, or if you get some bad news just before you go on air. I have a friend, John Agard, who's a poet, fantastic poet, and he and I talked about this. And he always used to say how he never wants his wife to phone up before he goes on stage to tell him any kind of news that may upset him. He said, for heaven's sake, just leave it until after the show. And I know exactly, it's because it throws you. You see something like that on television and it's so sad and tragic. You know, how do you do a show? But anyway, the show must go on. And I suppose that's one of the things I learned early on in doing this kind of work is how you have to continue. I mean, I've turned up to give talks and there's been one person in the audience, or I've, been in another country and done a book launch and one person has showed up, and you still have to act like you're really delighted to see them and that you give a little talk or you talk to them and so on. You don't want to say, oh, let's just forget this, go away. You've made a journey across the city to come to my book launch, but there's only one of you, so goodbye and have a nice life. You have to actually treat them well and carry on. And it's the same thing with the news. You watch the news, and in fact, of course, every day there are sad details. I mean, today, the good piece of news in the way is about Extinction Rebellion doing these protests all over the world and, trying to bring London to a standstill and all the rest of it. Because, as people rightly say, and they've said on the television, is, it makes worrying about Brexit look like worrying about what kind of fabric you're going to have on the deck chair of the Titanic. I mean, Brexit is meaningless in relation to what's actually happening to the planet and climate change. So here's the thing. So now, of course, somebody figured out what I was doing. In the comments, they said, you're using reverse psychology. And this is true. I mean, I was telling the truth. I'm being completely honest. I'm grumpy. You don't want to spend 20 minutes with a grumpy old guy. But I was also testing out a theory, a formula that we used to use at Druid camps. When a speaker like Ronald Hutton or Kathleen Matthews or myself would be giving a talk on the camp, because everybody was so chilled out at the Druid camps and they'd all be sitting around their little fires and chatting. Sometimes we'd be in a yurt waiting to begin a talk, and the yurt would only be half full. So I discovered a surefire way of filling up the yurt really fast. I would go and stand outside and say, do not come into this yurt. Do not attend. You are forbidden to attend the talk by Professor Ronald Hutton or Kathleen Matthews or Philip Carr-Gomm. And of course, everybody would rush towards the tent. So so I was trying out a similar trick. And yeah, Tony Starr Young, I cried when I saw the spire fall. Awful, awful to see. Stephanie and I were in Paris in November, right by Notre Dame. And gosh, yes, it's deeply sad. Because these places, these buildings feel as if somehow they embody some of the soul of a people, don't they? They're iconic. They're like a kind of symbol, the soul of the people. And because being a cathedral, it somehow seems to connect to the spirituality as well of the place. So it is indeed sad. So I got a theme. I was going to give you a whole rant, and I don't really feel like doing it now. I'm so sorry. I do apologize if you expect a good, honest, decent rant. But what I kind of got to was something behind it or underneath it all, which is about something that sounds probably rather dull, which is perseverance. If you've ever done the I Ching, you might have got the advice quite often that perseverance furthers. Keep going, persevere, persevere, persevere. And I think that's what you really have to do in anything you're doing, whether you're writing books or giving talks, or you just keep going. Even when the news is sad, you still stand up and give the talk. Even when you're upset about something, you still stand up and give the talk. Even though your life is falling apart, you still stand up and give the talk. I remember once being invited to St. James's Church in Piccadilly, which became famous for its alternatives talks, where people like William Bloom would organize, and still do, I think, organize talks about exciting and interesting alternative things and so on. And I was invited to talk there, and I had a stomach bug then, and I felt like throwing up. And so I had to stand up in front of, a couple of hundred people in this church, giving a talk with the sensation that at any moment I would start to projectile vomiting over the entire audience. And whilst I cannot recommend having these experiences and going through them, there is something about the experience that teaches you. It's perseverance. You persevere, you just keep going. And you recognize that whatever your physical state is, or your own particular emotional state or mental state, you need to be kind of honest and authentic, I think, but also you don't want to dump it on everybody else. Everybody doesn't want to spend a whole evening with somebody confessing that they feel like vomiting, So that's I think, for any of you who are engaged in any kind of enterprise, I think, and perhaps for all of us in our own ways, perseverance is something that is a quality that actually serves you in very good stead, and its rewards aren't immediately obvious. I sound like some old guy giving advice to his nephew or grandson, but I don't care if I think it's true. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that, you persevere. There isn't some immediate payoff. You just get through the evening, or you get through the talk, or you manage to finish the book by the deadline. And yet it's something that's incremental, that over time enables you to achieve something, to be of value, of use in the world. And in the end, yes, everybody's saying, sorry, I'm glancing at the comments. Everybody's very sad about Notre Dame, quite rightly too. And some of you who may have seen my Facebook rant the other day, I think it was last last week I went and saw a musical called Les Miserables, sadly set in Paris, which is probably one of the most appalling pieces of work ever produced by anybody. And I decided to actually say how I was feeling about it. What I couldn't believe, the most extraordinary thing, that was at the end of this appalling schmaltzy schlock, these saccharine songs that never quite lifted off, that were like sort of coitus interruptus, in as much as you almost got to some climax and then it would just go like that, and then there'd be another one, all kind of formulaic, and and the show had actually nothing to redeem itself. I went with about 5 people, and we all agreed about this. But at the end, it got a standing ovation. People standing up, clapping like mad. And I was thinking, what is this? And I went online, I looked on TripAdvisor, and 6,500 people give it a 5-star review. But 60 people gave it a 0 review, or 1 star. You have to give it 1 star. So we were some of this tiny minority of people. And this unleashed in me access to a kind of superpower that I didn't know I possessed. I'd spent my whole life really trying very carefully to be balanced and reasonable, not to hate anything, to adopt, this is why I like the Jain philosophy. There's a philosophical viewpoint called anikant, which is called the philosophy of multiple perspectives, which says everything's relative. What looks like one thing to one person looks like another thing, so always be reasonable. It's also called the doctrine of maybeism. And I love the doctrine of maybeism, and I love the placing uncertainty at the center of one's worldview, the kind of humility involved in saying, well, maybe I'm right, maybe you're right, I don't know. But what Andrew Lloyd Webber, God bless him, released for me was the utter certainty that this thing was truly appalling. And it's not relative, it's absolute. And of course, this is the power that the fundamentalists have unlocked. They're absolutely certain. And it gives you, it's like plugging yourself into some kind of volcano. How fantastic that was. Because what you're doing is you're utilizing blame. You're blaming something else, in this case, this awful musical, for a miserable night out. And you've got something to hate. And my God, that gets the phagocytes working and brings more oxygen to the brain and all the rest of it. And so this was wonderful, being supercharged on this kind of access to fundamentalism and fanaticism on my part. Tremendous resources that are contained there. And of course, the trick, I think, so I thought, well, this is interesting. I feel really energized by this. Maybe I'll go back and see another performance of it if I need sort of topping up. Interesting little things come out of that. For instance, if you really hate something and it gives you all this energy, in a strange way, you like it. You become kind of secretly bonded to it because it's done you a favor. It's given you some energy, which explains the kind of weird relationship that people who hate, kind of racism, sexism, all those things, that they're strangely attached to their objects of hate. So there's a huge education for me, actually. And if you adopt this namby-pamby new age thing about not blaming anybody and taking it all, you sink under the burden of blaming yourself for everything. So you feel grumpy, you blame yourself. You feel bad about saying, no, blame somebody else, but don't blame innocent people, blame something really crappy like Les Miserables, or like, as I chose another example, which is Oreos biscuits. If anybody's ever met an Oreos enthusiast, people make this big deal about the fact that it's an incredible biscuit. And you eat this thing, and as somebody said on Facebook, it's like a couple of pieces of clinker with kind of saccharine polystyrene in the middle, and you eat it, and you think, my God, are these people mad? Have they never eaten a biscuit, in a proper biscuit? If any of you like Oreos, please do me a favor. Go into the finest food store you can find in your town. Walk up to the counter and say, give me your finest, most expensive packet of biscuits. Buy it, open it straight away and eat one of those biscuits and tell me if it isn't like 1,000,000 times better than an Oreos. But why is it that people like them? I don't know. It's a mystery. Maybe there's some secret power in Oreos biscuits as well that I haven't come across. Yes. Some very old lady once said, when asked how she did it, just keep breathing. I suppose that's, you're referring to perseverance, I suppose. Oh, all sorts of really, Jason, take it you joined the 60s, yes? Presumably you mean my age, not the 1960s. You're blaming it on my age, yes. That's a good thing to blame. Let's blame it on age. It's like nothing's working anymore. These glasses, I've got about 10. I have so many pairs of glasses. Look, every single one, and none of them quite works. They're all, you know, look, they're all different. Even this pair, none of them work. I went into the opticians today and I said, look, I've spent hundreds of pounds on these, they don't even work. And she said, you have to persevere. Just keep using them for a month. So same story. Stephanie tells me I'm going deaf. I didn't believe her until I did notice that I was turning the television volume way up higher than she was. So maybe it's not spouse deafness. It's actually a real thing. So soon I'm going to be completely prosthetic. I'm going to have things in my ears and things on my eyes and things here. And anyway, so there we go. So what else can I rant about? One rather extraordinary thing, which isn't a rant at all, I'm just amazed, in the midst of all this gloom and Oreos suck, hooray, who said that? Yes, somebody. My God, you're so British, said somebody. Yes, because I'm restrained. Because do you notice something interesting? Thing about it's awful being British because you're saddled with restraint. I'm kind of riddled with it. It's like, even though I'm ranting, you can pick up the restraint. I'm not really letting rip, am I? I'm kind of holding back and being reasonable and trying to amuse you and all the rest of it. It's crippling. It's crippling, I can tell you. So what was I saying? Oh, yes. In the midst of all this gloom of sitting through Les Miserables for 3 hours, having a terrible time and, you know, all these things going on, and it's freezing in England. It's like the depths of winter. It's nice and sunny, but it's absolutely bitterly cold. In the middle of all this, I've been invited to teach at the Center for Excellence in Public Leadership in Washington, D.C. Isn't that incredible? I mean, that's extraordinary. I find that amazing. I'm deeply honored, deeply grateful, totally amazed. And not that anybody needs any training in excellent leadership in Washington. So heaven knows why they've turned to the likes of me. I don't know. But there you go. So how are we going to finish this? How are we going to get out of this mess we've got ourselves into? I don't know. But I'll tell you what came to me, which is in recognition of our love of France and of Paris and of our need for stability. I think what happens when we, you know, we're all so tuned in to what's happening in the world, it's very easy to be knocked to one side by the news. Switch on the television and it's, oh my God, and you're destabilized. So what's happening in our kind of switched on world is that we're constantly being destabilized because every day there's something happening in Sudan, Mozambique, Christchurch, and now Paris and so on. Happens every day. And how do we, on the one hand, stay tuned in, stay connected and caring, and yet at the same time, keep our center, keep stabilized? And it seems to me that that's one of the functions of a spiritual path. It's one of the functions of meditation, of spirituality. That's one of the reasons why we turn to it, is because it offers us the possibility of a sense of stability in this world. So let's have a little meditation, and in it I'm going to say a little phrase that I followed a guru in France for a while. He was actually Bulgarian, but he was all in French, and Omar Michal Ivanov. And he used to, in a meditation, he used to say these words in French. They say better, they sound better in French than they do in English. I'll say it in French first, and then I'll say it in English. Je suis stable, fils du stable, conçu et engendré dans le territoire de la stabilité. And in English, it's I am stable, the child of stability, conceived and engendered in the territory of stability. So let's go to the sacred grove. Let's sit in a clearing in the forest, connecting to the stability of the earth. And then I'll just say those words, and we can just tune in to a sense of stability deep within. So if you're up for this, you might like to close your eyes to better concentrate on yourself. And then, whilst being aware of being seated here in front of your computer or screen, there's also a way in which you can sense that you're seated in the sacred grove with your fellow companions from all across the world, seated in the grove too. And you become aware of the ground beneath you, and you sense its stability. You sense the life in this earth, all the insects and creatures in the earth, the minerals, the rocks, the soil, the water. And you allow yourself to feel anchored, seated on this earth. All your anxieties and concerns just fall away into the earth as you feel stable, settled, seated on the earth. Just breathing in and breathing out. And you become aware of all the roots of the trees anchored in the earth too. Your sisters and brothers, the trees, bringing such a sense of protection and stability, rooted firmly in the soil, their trunks rising with such beauty up into the air, their branches and leaves stretching out. And you breathe in the oxygen that these trees are producing. And you can sense the aroma of these trees too, breathing in their essential oils deep into your lungs. And you become aware of the sky above you, and you breathe in the energy of the sky, which brings vitality and energy to your being. And the energy of the sky meets the energy of the earth within the center of your being. And as you sit in the sacred grove, you just allow the words to soak in, just connecting to a feeling of stability. Je suis stable, fils du stable, conçu et engendré dans le territoire de la stabilité. I am stable, child of stability, conceived and engendered in the territory of stability. And just breathing in and out, feeling centered, feeling stable. Just imagine that you're leaning forward and touching the earth in front of you with one palm or perhaps with both your palms. Just feeling the earth beneath you, just feeling the stability of the earth. And then you lift your palms up, and then bringing that sense of stability, just bring your palms to your heart or to your solar plexus, and feeling that stability within you. Je suis stable, fils du stable, conçu et engendré dans le territoire de la stabilité. I am stable, child of stability, conceived and engendered in the territory of stability. May all beings be blessed. May the earth be blessed. And then feeling centered and calmed, you gradually allow your awareness of the sacred grove to fade as you become aware of being seated here in front of your computer or your screen. Liz says that the USB stick in my ear is a giveaway. Yes. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your lovely comments. I can see that the comments are great. Oreos are gross. Scientifically designed dopamine for profit. Yes. Aussies don't have that problem of restraint. Yes. In lots of places, you don't have this problem. It's kind of, I don't know, it's in the water in Britain or something. There's a lovely, I don't know if you ever saw that film, what is it? A Fish Called Wanda. And John Cleese was once interviewed about it. And he talks about how, you know, there's one thing in Britain that you're saddled with is this terrible fear of being embarrassing, going over the top. There used to be a program, when I was a kid, there was a program called Candid Camera, where they used to film ridiculous situations with a hidden camera and watch people's reactions. And I remember they had one where they had this top hat on a guy that was on fire with sort of smoke coming out of it. It was like and he was in a businessman's suit, and they hid the camera in the trees and in the bushes in Hyde Park. And they got this businessman walking along and sitting down and reading a newspaper with his hat on fire. And then they filmed people walking past or filmed people sitting down. And instead of, you know, if you're in America or Italy or something like that, people say, "Oh my God, your hat's on fire. Hey, what's going on? Stop." In England, people would sit down and they'd hesitate. And in the end, when they, excuse me, I wonder if I could just point out that something seems to be going on with your hat. You know, we're reserved. We're crippled in some way. So lots of love. Thank you for bearing with the grumpy old man. It's actually what Gomm means. You might have wondered what Gomm means on the end of my name. You might have thought it had something to do with some family thing, or the Gomm family hooking up with the Carr family in the 19th century. No. It stands for grumpy old miserable man. That's where it comes from. It's a kind of qualification I received some time ago. So lots of love. And I'll see you next week, or perhaps somebody else will see you. We'll see. A surprise. Okay, lots of love. Bye. Have a great week.